Today's highlights. Liquidity is being released slowly, but the whales are frantically dumping Bitcoin. The $90,000 mark is a major liquidation test for the entire market, and whether we can pass it smoothly is still a question. The leading ETFs are continuously losing funds. Are investors really switching to a different track? USDJ has depegged multiple times, and Brother Sun has chosen to exit gracefully. It's Wednesday, November 9th. This is the BitcoinTV Chinese channel. Be united. I'm Michael. Now let's look at the most important data from the past 24 hours in the crypto space. Let's first take a look at the US Treasury, which has finally stopped aggressively draining liquidity. The TGA dropped from about $959 billion to $925 billion in mid-November, releasing over $30 billion back into the market in one go. Previously, the threat of a government shutdown caused the TGA to soar, and combined with quantitative tightening, it squeezed the system's liquidity to the point where it could barely breathe. According to JP Morgan traders, this has been the main culprit behind the recent slump in the US stock market. Now, the Treasury has started injecting money into the market. On a macro level, liquidity has gone from being suffocatingly tight to slightly more relaxed. But if we look on-chain, it's a completely different story. Where things need to be tight, they're still tight. Crypto analyst Yu Jing heard that a whale who had been accumulating WBTC and Ethereum at high levels using leverage in order to avoid being liquidated by Avi dumped 9,516 ETH within 24 hours. The average selling price was $3,085. He reduced his debt from $150 million to between $120 million and $100 million, so the health rate of this account rose from a near-collapse 1.04 to 1.12, which can be considered a temporary lifeline. But what's the problem? This whale still has 1,560 WBTC, worth about $144 million, and another 9,000 ETH sitting on top. That's about $28 million, and the leverage ratio is still extremely high. If the market drops a bit further, he could be forced to reduce his position at any time. So in short, while external funds are returning and bringing some glory, it's still very difficult to reduce leverage on-chain. A warming macro environment doesn't mean the market is completely safe. So for the current short-term trend, it still comes down to one thing: the rise is driven by external capital. The drops are caused by leveraged liquidations. Looking at the liquidation heat map, Bitcoin seems to be stuck in a tug-of-war between the $90,000 and $94,000 range. So things aren't exactly reassuring on the macro side either. The probability of a Fed rate cut keeps dropping, and on top of that, Trump has openly stated that he already has someone in mind for the next Fed chair. As a result, everyone's expectations and predictions about interest rates have become even more chaotic. As a result, what we're seeing is that the US stock market drops first and the crypto market cools off along with it. So, how much is stacked below the $90,000 mark right now? There are $1.048 billion worth of long liquidation points. If there really is a sharp drop below that level, then a chain reaction of liquidations could happen in minutes. On the other hand, if it surges past 94,000, then $657 million worth of shorts will be wiped out in a flash. So in the short term, the upward momentum could be quite strong. But what's the problem? Right now, leverage is too high and liquidity is very thin, so the impact of these liquidation points will be especially amplified. What's the market's usual playbook? Even if prices are going to rise later, there will first be a very sneaky wick down to flush out the excessive leverage. So in the short term, what everyone should be worried about isn't the direction of the move, but rather the sudden violent swings up and down. $90,000 is now the market's Achilles heel. Let's look at Bitcoin again. The short-term traders in this round really can't hold on anymore. STH as a whole has entered the most brutal capitulation mode in history. What does that mean? The STH SOPA has dropped to around 0.97, and it's been below 1 for several days in a row. If it can't get back above 1, it means everyone is selling at a loss. Also, the STH MVRV has fallen below 1 as well. This basically tells us that all the players who bought in recently are completely trapped. And what's even more surreal is that in the past few days, over 65,000 bitcoins have been sent to exchanges while at a huge loss. So, as you can see, panic isn't just shouted out, it's created with real money being thrown in. When you add up all these indicators, this is a textbook case of capitulation. In the end, the weak hands run away and the strong hands take over. In the short term, the recent volatility will continue to torment everyone, but history tells us that when things get this scary, a reversal is usually not far off. The current downward pressure and panic may look alarming, but in reality, they're paving the way for healthier growth ahead. The risks are up front, and so are the opportunities. It all depends on whether you can hold your ground now, catch the opportunity steadily, and whether you have the courage to enter the market. Alright, please like this video and turn on the notification bell. We'll help you sort through the latest updates from the crypto, blockchain, and mining circles over the past 24 hours. You're also welcome to become a member. Tomorrow, Thursday, we'll have an exclusive live stream for gold and silver tier members where we'll discuss the topics you care about. For today's headline, let's take a look. Bitcoin has dropped below $90,000. Last night, it broke through that level, and Ethereum also briefly fell below $3,000. This is the first time in 4 months that we've seen Ethereum starting with a 2. And what's even worse, the ETF is also crashing across the board. Yesterday, Bitcoin spot ETFs had a $250 million outflow, the 4th day in a row. Ethereum did worse, with $183 million out and 5 days of outflows. That's why we've started to cut our short-term losses strategically. A lot of funds have been pulled back waiting to re-enter at the bottom of this wave, so it seems that this hot money really doesn't want to bother with the top 2 coins anymore. But the question is, where did this money go?
Data shows that Canary's XRPC had a net inflow of $25.41 million yesterday. Net assets reached $257 million, with XRP accounting for 0.2%. Solana spot ETFs saw a combined inflow of $8.26 million, and BSL had $7.31 million, $950,000. Works VSOL traded $1.12 million on its first day on NASDAQ, with zero net inflow and total assets of $6.72 million.
Copper, you think about it, and I think about this in Bink and in a bunch of our portfolios. I've got to make sure you can do redemptions and creations. I have to make sure your beta stays consistent, so I do think you'll see more of this in ETFs. Listen, I think the ETF wrapper is, in many ways, the future because of how people build models and think about it.
The market is in panic. Bernstein, a Wall Street investment bank, says Bitcoin's long-term bullish factors remain. This fluctuation could be a rare entry chance. Bitcoin may bottom between $80,000 and $90,000 before another rise.
There's a saying in the crypto world that's considered politically correct. What is it? It's that retail investors always chase the highs and sell at the lows, while true experts buy when no one is paying attention and sell when the crowd is in a frenzy. Right now, the Crypto Fear and Greed Index has dropped to its lowest point since the pandemic, and the entire market is shrouded in an atmosphere of extreme panic. So, is this your best opportunity to enter the market? History has proven many times that the moments of greatest panic are exactly when it's most worthwhile to make your move. Yet right now, many people, many players, are selling off their holdings at low prices. This is what's called chasing the highs and selling at the lows. Truly rational players would never hand over their chips at a time like this. Instead, they keep their composure, use dollar cost averaging to ride out both bull and bear markets. And when it's time to sow the seeds, that's when the entire market is their opportunity. When everyone is so afraid that they don't even dare to look at the market, that's exactly when the right time to enter has arrived. Alright, let's turn our attention to Brother Sun. One thing he officially announced in the past couple of days is that his decentralized stablecoin will officially shut down at 10 o'clock p.m. Beijing time on the 17th. USG, what is that? It was one of the hottest flagship projects on Tron back in 2020. At the time, it was a copy of MakerDAO's Psi model, issuing dollar-pegged assets through collateralization. It was quite popular for a while, but as everyone knows, the stablecoin space has evolved rapidly in recent years, right? Everyone's been upgrading, so USDJ's underlying technology is pretty outdated, and its model is rather rigid. So in the end, unable to keep up with the times, it could only bow out gracefully.
Data shows USDJ has dropped below $1 several times during extreme market conditions. Justin Sun said the team spent over a year reclaiming more than 95% of the circulating supply. The rest is less than about $200,000. The official final plan is a 1-to-1 redemption, but the peg is now a fixed rate. 1 USDG equals 1.5532 TRX. So, USDG is no longer a USD stablecoin, but a token voucher for TRX. A withdrawal channel will be kept open for the remaining holders.
Given Justin Sun's personality, even though USDJ has retired, he's not one to admit defeat. Now there's a new favorite in the spotlight. Its main selling point is flexible defense. Justin Sun even brought in USDT as deep support, aiming to enhance its resistance to volatility through multi-collateralization and a reserve fund. So, one strong, one stable, the goal is to build a complete system on the Tron chain. The liquidation price of this structure, in plain terms, this move is about temporarily putting the decentralization narrative on the back burner. Scale comes first, stability is the priority, and that's become the mainstream approach on Tron right now. Here, there are legends of overnight riches, as well as carefully crafted scams. This is a dark forest of chaotic development, but it also nurtures the spark of hope leading toward the light. The destination of faith is freedom. The ultimate goal of consensus is equality. BitcoinTV, guiding you through the fog to see the future and helping you gradually become wealthier together. After taking a $1.4 billion loan from the International Monetary Fund, El Salvador instead stockpiled $100 million worth of Bitcoin. Will they break their promise? Getting a license costs $7 million, and you still have to pay cross-border taxes. Brazil is tightening its crypto regulations even further. Can this save Brazil's foreign exchange reserves? Not long ago, we reported that El Salvador, in order to secure a $1.4 billion loan from the International Monetary Fund, made a promise. The IMF said, "We will buy less Bitcoin and won't force businesses to accept Bitcoin payments." In March this year, the IMF issued another reminder, don't go buying recklessly. So in July, the Central Bank of El Salvador and the finance minister even personally signed a pledge, promising to comply. But after this recent downturn, can you guess what happened?
According to El Salvador's official government sources recently released,
According to the El Salvador Bitcoin office, the government purchased another 1,090 Bitcoins on Tuesday, spending $100 million, which increased its holdings from 5,968 Bitcoins at the time of signing the loan agreement with the IMF in December 2024 to more than 7,474 Bitcoins. Although Bitcoin has dropped 28% from its early October high of $126,000 to $96,000, the country's foreign exchange reserves are worth $683 million. Previously, due to discrepancies between reserve records and the payment system, the IMF explained it as a minor error. But now the reserve data shows a continuous upward trend, which can no longer be explained as just a small difference.
and the condition for rescuers to obtain emergency funds from the IMF, granting $14 billion, was to avoid the risks associated with this currency.
I support the actions of the president of El Salvador. Before the next crisis arrives, before a fiat currency crisis breaks out, Bitcoin is the most important option to safeguard a country's economic lifeline. Now, the US dollar is weakening, and the beacon nation has already turned off its light, so hoarding even more US dollars now carries obvious asset risks. So up to this point, during the decline, are you really going to wait until prices go up to buy? In the future, more and more third world and economically underdeveloped countries, when the US dollar is printed in excess, will be the first to be hit and will be forced to choose Bitcoin and crypto assets to preserve their national dignity. Even the value of the currency in the hands of ordinary people. Right now, Brazil can be considered a crypto haven, but recently Brazil's crypto community has suffered a series of heavy blows. First, in April, the authorities announced that they would confiscate crypto assets related to debt claims. This stopped many loophole-exploiting activities. In November, the central bank issued new rules, treating some stablecoin and crypto wallet transactions as foreign exchange and regulating them. They also applied all consumer protection and anti-money laundering laws to crypto platforms. And now, the authorities have announced that if you want to conduct crypto trading in Brazil, you must have a license and your capital must exceed $7 million. What really made Brazilian investors anxious is that cross-border crypto transfers will soon be taxed. What I'm curious about is what tools they'll use to assess the tax amount.
According to reports during recent internal discussions, Brazil's Ministry of Finance has made it clear that they plan to apply the financial operations tax to a broader range, including certain cross-border transactions involving digital assets as taxable items. The IOF has traditionally been used for foreign exchange loans and insurance-related financial activities, while crypto transactions have long been exempt.
Brazil has a somewhat closed economy. One thing we haven't quite figured out is foreign exchange. It's actually very difficult to do it seamlessly in Brazil. That's why I think stablecoins, for example, are great, because they allow Brazilians to basically have more control over how they conduct foreign transactions.
This adjustment is not an isolated move. The Brazilian Federal Tax Authority recently announced that it will align its crypto asset reporting regulations with the Global Crypto Asset Reporting Framework, released on October 14th, allowing tax authorities to access global data through the OECD. With this shared standard, authorities can ask about residents' overseas crypto accounts. In fact, by late 2023, Brazil had already supported the CARF, and this move formally fulfills that commitment.
As everyone knows, currently in Brazil, if you make money from crypto trading, you have to pay a 17.5% income tax. Moreover, the United States plans to connect its IRS to the CARF, and the European Union also intends to tax crypto. This includes all global capital flows, or in other words, capital. Developed countries all plan to bring crypto taxation into their national treasuries. But for the Brazilian government, your economy is already weak. You're in an economically underdeveloped region. If you impose strict controls, if you clamp down too hard on capital controls and stifle the vitality of crypto, your government's tax revenue will only decrease, and hot money will just keep flowing out. Just wait and see if you don't believe it. All right, time to run.
Elon Musk is once again in the spotlight. He showed up in person at the White House to attend the state dinner Trump held for Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. The event was truly star-studded. Even football superstar Cristiano Ronaldo was there. Trump even joked that after introducing Ronaldo to his son Barron Trump, he immediately scored extra points in his son's eyes. According to Dear News, Vitalik Buterin made a direct statement on stage in Buenos Aires, saying that Ethereum's underlying protocol shouldn't keep undergoing major overhauls and changes. It's time to make it more rigid and lock down the core functions. Otherwise, every update could introduce new vulnerabilities, leaving both developers and users on edge. Uniswap founder Hayden Adams said directly on X that there are always people jumping out to call for Uniswap to be taken down, but they don't mind at all. In fact, they find it pretty amusing. After all, without competition, this space would be truly boring. Binance announced that starting at 10 p.m. tonight, the Nutrient network will be upgraded. Deposits and withdrawals will be suspended temporarily, so don't worry if your funds aren't credited immediately. The latest disclosure from the U.S. Department of Justice shows that 45-year-old California man Kunal Mehta, also known as Shrek, pleaded guilty to participating in a $263 million cryptocurrency case and violating the Anti-Corruption Organization Act. He also helped launder at least $25 million. The nickname may sound cute, but the crime is anything but small.
Today's altruism. We always believe that as long as we're sincere enough, we can receive the same in return. You think that as long as you pour your heart out, you can warm someone else's heart. But has reality ever slapped you in the face? The harder you try, the easier it is for others. The more you care, the more casually they treat you. In those moments when you suddenly feel a chill in your heart, do you think it's just an accident? Or is it the moment you truly start to see that person for who they are? You think you're very important, but what about the other person? The truth is, they only need you occasionally. You thought you were the exception, but in the end, you realize you're just an ordinary person. The greatest pain between people is suddenly realizing that in the other person's heart, you're not nearly as important as you imagined. So stop running towards someone who has never taken a single step toward you. Learn to pull back the enthusiasm you've given too freely and save your wasted tenderness for those truly around you who are worth your attention. Being clear-headed isn't scary. What's scary is knowing the truth but still trying to convince yourself otherwise. So don't overestimate your place in someone else's heart. That's not value, it's just an illusion. If you understand, feel free to give a like. Alright, that's all for today's program. Every day, we help everyone sort through all the news in the Web3 world. Here, we've organized member benefits, and we hope to lead everyone to thrive together in this cycle. Don't ever be rich. See you tomorrow.